Hey everybody, welcome back. This is After Wine School. I am Keith Wallace. This is Alana Zerbe.
Welcome.
It is great to be here.
It is.
You know what we're going to talk about today?
Please tell me.
Oak. We're talking about oak. We're talking about flavor bombs. We're there. It's something that people either love it, they hate it, but they're going to have to listen to me talk about it. And you too.
And me too. Yeah, it's fascinating because oak is one of those things that's very divisive.
Yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about that in our episode. But it's also symbolic. It has huge cultural cachet. And especially in wine, it really is, and for a long time has been, a major flex for a winemaker to make.
I've made that flex so many times. My guns are made of oak. My guns are made of oak. All right, folks, here. Okay, question for you. What does Chablis, California Cabernet, and Australian Shiraz all have in common? Their reputations were either made or almost broken by their use of oak.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. All right, let's talk about it. So something that's really interesting about oak is that in the history of winemaking, it was not our forebears, the Romans or the Greeks, who get so much credit for viticultural methods, for tending the grape, things that are so relevant in our wine world today. They didn't know about oak. It was the Gauls, actually, who were using oak to store their beer.
Those damn Gauls and
Those
their
damn Gauls.
beer.
So when the Romans encountered the Gallic tribes, they were still using clay amphora, just like the Greeks had, to transport their wine. And wine at that time, because of the resin seals, had a pretty funky taste.
Oh, it wasn't just funky. It was like pine sol. Intense. They oftentimes use pine resin. It was
Pine
pretty
resin,
nasty.
and they did have other herbs and spices added in. But what they realized, they saw the Gauls using these barrels. They thought, let's try that for wine. And over time, not only was this incredibly easy to transport, oak was abundant, it was pliable, it was watertight, and lo and behold, it also seasoned the wine in a very pleasant way.
That is correct. But this is the thing about oak. White oak, and we're talking about specifically white oak. This isn't the oak you use for making your stairs or your floors. It's very specific. White oak, let me put it this way. It never rots. It cannot rot. It will not rot. We have a barrel outside the wine school in Philadelphia. It's been out there for a decade. It will never rot. It's also completely watertight to this day. That is amazing. To build a boat or build a barrel, this was a massive innovation in the world of wine and storing anything, that you can just put it in there. You don't have to worry about it. That's amazing. Now, a couple things about this. First of all, there isn't just one species. There's a couple of them. There's French oak. That's what's mostly used. You see in a lot of wine. But there's also Baltic oak. It's not really used anymore at all. I want to know some Baltic oak wines. I want to try them. So send them my way. That said, there's also American oak. That's commonly used to this day in actually bourbon. Love my bourbon. And there's also Croatian oak, which we usually know as Slavonian oak or Slavonian oak. So we have those. So a little bit different. They all have different kind of flavor profiles. American oak is big and vanilla. Baltic oak, I have no idea. Like I said, I have no idea. And then you have French oak, which is very nuanced. And in the middle of there's that Croatian oak. A little bit of difference. It gets more complicated. Because when you build a barrel, we've always had to burn the inside to bend that oak. It's pliable, but it's more pliable, and it'll expand into watertight barrel if you heat the inside. So it chars the inside of the barrel, and that char, that flavors the wine. That's that toasty. You ever have a bottle of wine? It's like, oh, that tastes like chocolate or it tastes like espresso. That's why. It's that char on the inside. Now we can control that char. It could be a light toast, a very, very light, delicate toast that's going to give a very slight essence. And that's what when we're making bourbons, aging barrels, that's what we use. Like you get massive, massive oak burnt flavors, and that's intense. But for winemaking, typically we use medium to medium plus char in the toast in the inside. That toasting, it's a nice balance between the flavors of the oak, like you talked about, and then the char. And then it's a little more complicated. It's a little more complicated than that, people. Because it's not just the varieties and the toast, it's also the size. Now, if you go to any winery in the world, what you see are barriques. Now, those are the traditional Bordeaux style of barrels. They're not small, but they're the smallest ones we use in professional winemaking. Fantastic. If you put a Cabernet or a Shiraz in one of those barrels for a year, 2 at most, delicious, amazing. Come out, you have all those oak flavors and those wine flavors. What if you want to put something longer? What if you have a wine like, say, like a Nebbiolo from Barolo that's so massively tannic that you want to age it for longer? What if you want to age it for 10, 20 years? Well, that's when you need larger barrels. And those larger barrels, they give a completely different oak flavor profile because you have less contact with the oak with much more volume of wine. But over time, because of how aging and how hydric systems work and how wine flows and moves, even when it's still within that barrel, it ages differently. The flavors are completely different. And we oftentimes are using a different kind of oak rather than French oak. These are called botis if they're in Barolo. And these are usually that Slavonian oak. And we use similar barrels in Rioja, but they use American oak. So people, size matters. I'm sorry. So yeah, there you go. I had to say it. Yeah, hey, you know, sometimes it does.
So we did cover a lot of interesting things about oak in the episode WTF is in my wine. We went into a little more about what the specific flavors are, the chemical compounds. So folks, if you are interested in that, definitely look back in the catalog and find that episode and the segment on actually oak as an additive. So Keith, can you tell us a little bit about when the turning point is, like when oak really acquires its status as a symbol of luxury and class and fine wine?
Oh, that's actually a great question. Okay, so it was in Bordeaux. Like the Bordelais, they went from like being like outlaws to by the 1800s, early 1800s, they were already had established as being making fine wines, bigger, heavier reds. They went for a little throwback. They started making sweeter, funky, weird, cheap wines. But by the 1800s, they're making banging wines, and they are the first ones. And they're using Baltic oak. They're using this oak that no one ever uses now. I don't even know what it tastes like. It was, I think, largely because it was inexpensive, but there was a Napoleonic blockade of Bordeaux, right? 1800s, a lot of wars, and they couldn't get Baltic oak in. So what they did was they actually started making barrels with the local oak, with the French oak. French oak, it's all over the place, right? There's plentiful. And this is what I love about the wine industry. We've always done this. If we have to do something, we have to adapt. So the French were like, Baltic oak, nah. That stuff that was dog's breakfast. No, French oak, though, no, that's where it's at. And so they slowly migrated over to all French oak. And the 1800s was this huge time for Bordeaux because that's when they really established their brand, when they became this insanely amazing place. 1855, you know that date. Most sommeliers actually have that date, 1855, tattooed on their chest. It's just something you have to do. You get that. Because 1855 is what? It's a classification system for Bordeaux.
Look at my chest. Hold on.
Yes, that is, yes, exactly. Hey, Grand Cru, baby. Yeah, can we get that like in post? Absolutely. Just like have them tattooed? I should get that. By 1855, right? The whole classification system has been founded on the idea that Bordeaux is amazing, but it wasn't just Bordeaux, it was actually the oak. So the 1800s, when you have this established that French wine, especially Bordeaux, aged in French oak, is the highest peak of wine, the peak of luxury, everything. That was it.
I love that. I love that our story of oak begins with the Gallic tribes using local French oak. And then over the centuries, other types of oak become preferred.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. When you no longer have access to something, the best marketing move is to say, oh, well, it's even better now.
Yeah.
In fact, they're going back to something that they always had.
And the Romans were like, of course, in the beginning when Romans saw them doing it, they were like, goddamn Gauls, what do they know?
Barbarians.
Barbarians, and they resented using it. And they actually, in the beginning, they only would use it if they were too far away to get the amphora in. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll use the oak barrels, fine. But then eventually it becomes the thing. Now, let's jump ahead a little bit. We talked about Bordeaux. Let's talk about Burgundy a little bit. Is that okay?
No, please.
All right. Because, I want to talk about like how did Americans all fall in love with oak? Because they fell, I swear to God, Americans fell in love with oak before they fell in love with wine. So Burgundy. Now there's two kinds of white Burgundy, really. I mean, there's more than that, but you have your white Burgundy, your Chablis, which is austere and beautiful and lovely, but it's aged traditionally in neutral old French barrels. Beautiful. Further south, you have Montrachet. And Montrachet, which is, it's warmer, so the Chardonnay is richer and riper. They use newer oak because it can handle it. And it has these wonderful textures and a little bit of oak flavors. But when Americans started making Chardonnay in the 60s and 70s, they adapt the Montrachet style. By the 80s, Americans are falling in love with these Chardonnays. And not just the Chardonnays, right? The Americans, especially the Napa winemakers, they're riffing off of the French. But Americans are saying, we love this, but more oak. More oak. We want oak. And we want it. We love that cinnamon. We love that nutmeg. We love those big toasty flavors. Give me more oak. And yeah, no, that's how they did it too. And they were just screaming, more oak, please. And so, of course, American winemakers, of course, newer and newer barrels and for longer and longer periods. And the oak wines are getting oakier and more cinnamon and more nutmeg and more intense. Right. And then when the Australians got into the business, they just started, they're like, oh, Americans want oak. So we're like, well, we're going to age our Shiraz in American oak. We're going to age it in French and American. Maybe we'll throw in some other kinds of oak in there too. Maybe we'll even throw a couple barrels of that Baltic oak, see if Keith can even notice the difference. And they just like bombed us with oak barrels. Like, I mean, it was a war crime, the amount of oak they put in their wines. This is, by the way, fruit bombs. This is what we're talking about. Those Australians, those Californians. Yeah.
And just to clarify, the Americans in the 70s and 80s, they were using French oak.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone, because they're borrowing from the French, so we were only using French. But then, as the Americans were crying for more and more, we started using American oak. And to this day, we actually do. Like, there's still some Red Zinfandels out there that are still aged in American oak. But that was it. We did it to ourselves. The trend was delicate, balanced wines coming out from France, and then we just wanted more and more. Yeah, we asked for it. We got it, and that's the thing. When I was a winemaker in the early aughts, late 90s, you could not give people enough oak. The idea was like, how do you introduce more oak in? Like, can we put oak chips into the barrels? Like, trying to figure out like how do you do that? No, seriously.
Really?
Oh, I did that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I did that. Unfortunately, though, that was terrible. It tasted like cinnamon. Everything tasted like cinnamon. Like, we pulled out that one test barrel. It was like, it tasted like breakfast cereal. You know that breakfast cereal that tastes like cinnamon?
I love that.
Yeah.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yes, a Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It was a barrel of that.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, my God.
And so at that time, though, everything that highly rated, very expensive top of the line wines had in common was a huge amount of oak.
Insane amount of oak. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is, yeah, the flavor bombs, baby. Flavor bombs.
So you were in Napa and Italy making wines.
Yes.
And then I started getting into wine in the late 90s, early aughts. And that's when the backlash was happening.
It was starting as soon as we hit our peak, you all became haters.
Yes. And you say you all, and it's really y'all, because I was working in the South. I was in Virginia, Northern Virginia.
That's right, you were.
And I was working for a winemaker who, because of the ubiquity of Napa-style Chardonnay, actually hated Chardonnay. Oh. And she was a member of what was common back then of the anything but Chardonnay movement, the ABC, I'll drink anything but Chardonnay. The tail on this has just been so long. People to this day think that they don't like Chardonnay. when in fact it's the oak. So there was a huge backlash against a monoflavor culture, basically.
Oh, I love that. Monoflavor. Oh, that's a play on monoculture. I love that. Thank you. All right.
And sort of the symbol of this became Robert Parker, because his palate really defined the 80s and 90s, and it was the Wine Advocate and then other publications similar to his that used the 100-point rating scale. The wines that had the high alcohol, the big fruit, and the big new oak, they always got the highest ratings. So in the early 2000s, there was a big backlash against globalization and a monoculture. And so Parker was the symbol of that when it came to winemaking. People really were rebelling against that and wanted to go back to a more local, a more quote unquote natural style of wine. And this is where the natural winemaking movement really starts. And so winemakers start to employ stainless steel, concrete eggs, back to amphora, where we started in the very beginning. So that has been the more recent history of oak. And there is a movie, if you're interested in seeing sort of on the ground gonzo footage of this, Mondovino, the movie, captures this tension in a really unique way. Not the greatest movie, but it captures a time extremely well.
They were right about this. Oak became the viticultural version of Axe body spray.
No one wants that, Keith. Axe body spray, it's too much.
Yeah. No, you know what? I know I guess I was a 14-year-old boy when I was a winemaker, because man, I like that. Oh my God. Oh.
Well, the good news is that we've settled into a place right in the middle with oak today, where you do get some depth, you get complexity, but it's not overtaking the ultimate flavors of the wine itself. So we have titrated back from the excesses of the 80s and 90s. And so oak today is used much more sparingly, a lot more neutral barrels, larger format barrels, like you talked about earlier. And so today's iteration of oak is to give seasoning, to give nuance, to give depth, but not overpower the wine itself.
Hallelujah. Absolutely. So, all right. Shall I jump in the lightning round?
Oh, let's do the lightning round.
Okay. Number 1, French oak is always better. False. False. Bordeaux. Yes. Rioja. No. Rolo. No. No. Plenty of kinds of oak. French is not always better. Young is not always better either.
Yeah. And I have one for you too.
Oh. That
to make steely wines, you need stainless steel. Keith, that's just not true.
It is not.
It's not true. Think about Chablis. Chablis is defined by its use of neutral oak, and it is razor sharp. It has that wonderful high-toned acidity that Psalms love, and you get that not from stainless steel, but actually from neutral oak.
Here, here, here. And finally, oak is passé. No. Oak is not passé. As the arbiter of all things cool in the world, as you know, I say oak is still hip. People, oak is not just a hipster. It is good for you. It's lovely. In balance, though. We need to have an imbalance. You can't just make wine and eggs, people. I can't believe you have to say that. Please, oak. Oak.
All right, Eve. I think this was a wonderful little tour of the world of oak,
Yes.
the trends in oak. And so people have an understanding, things do always come back around. I have found in my classes recently, a lot of people are finding that they really like the added depth and complexity that oak will give wines. So folks who always had, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc are now finding that having a little more complexity is a nice change. So just keep that in mind. Things are always changing in wine, just like in the wider world.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we find, because we're teaching wine all the time, and we've done it, I've done it for 20 years, you've done it for a decade, we can see the ebbs and flows. And right now, oak is coming back.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Oak is coming back. You won't see that in the marketplace. People won't be talking about it for another couple of years. And if you want to be on the cutting edge of wine and understand it, well, then you should take a sommelier class. You should take it with me, take it with Alana at the National Wine School, wineschool.us. You can earn your sommelier certification online. And I do not I do not drop a single F-bomb. Not a single one.
They get bleeped out.
Yeah, they do.
But if you want all the bleeps, you can come in person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Wine School of Philadelphia, where we teach full time. Please do join us if you're in the area for a class. Keith is hyper. He's caffeinated, and he's always ready to swear.
That's right. They can't close us down largely because we actually bribe all the local judges.
It's very easy
It
with all
is.
this wine.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
So yes, come. Love to see you. Please like and subscribe. That does so much for our viewership, especially if you tell your friends. So please, I have to beg you, come. Please like
What
me.
do we have next up?
Oh, that's a good question. I know, because you told me what's going to be climate change.
Yes. Okay. Great. All right. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Have a great
folks.
night. Cheers.